It's more important than the music. It's more important than the fashion. I would say if I had to list the order from least important to most important, community would come first. This is going to be one of the most important videos that I make here on my channel, at least when it comes to visual kei. Like, I think this is going to be one of the most important videos. This video is going to be about my observed differences between visual kei fans here in America compared to Japan. Now, of course, I can only speak in great detail about being a fan here in America. Yes, I have visited Japan, but I didn't participate in any like visual kei related stuff while I was there. So in this video, when comparing American visual kei fans to Japanese fans, anything I have to say about visual kei will be from years of observing, reading information online, blogs from Banya, or just reading interviews from visual kei members of different bands and their perceptions. If you have a more intimate relationship with visual kei and actually participated in the scene, feel free to share information and fill in the blanks as much as you want to. I'm really excited to hear people talk about their own experiences because I think it'll be beneficial for everyone, especially for people who hope to one day go to Japan for a more authentic experience. I know we got a lot of researchers, a lot of people who read through comments because they one day want to go. Before I start, just so you guys know, all of these differences I'm going to list are not ordered by importance. All of them are equally important. And after I list those differences, I'm going to give you guys some of my predictions for the future of visual kei as far as its popularity here in America, the direction I think it's going in. That'll be at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. First difference I see when it comes to visual kei American fans in comparison to visual kei Japanese fans is what I like to call the time capsule effect. The best way I can describe this phenomenon is being obsessed with bands in a very non-linear manner. For my entire time being into visual kei, it was much more common to not be following bands' current work, but instead following previous eras of their work. Whether that was because you liked the music more or you liked how the band looked more, keeping up with current events wasn't really common when I was growing up with a lot of visual kei fans that I came across. Even now that I'm older, there seems to be obsession with bands' previous eras in a way that is stagnant almost. And even for popular bands like the Gazette and Deer on Gray, even though they were more caught up in comparison, it still took them some time to warm up to new releases despite them being more up to date with their bands. By the time we were obsessed with like a new album or new music or a new release from a band, the band was already off doing something else. So it wasn't really new anymore. I don't know, it just takes a lot of time for visual kei fans in America to take a liking to a lot of groups' newer work. And then sometimes they just go back further. They don't even go forward, they just go backward. I didn't really give this phenomenon much thought until I was older. And I think it's more common nowadays for younger listeners to be stuck in a time capsule compared to when I was younger. I would say a lot of younger people, especially Gen Z, are picking different eras of music and fashion and absorbing it. I think it's just a result of having unlimited access to music, videos. Like, there's so much access, so they're getting current news, and then they're also going into the past in an attempt to find more things that they like. I know when I was growing up, most people stuck in time capsules, only listening to music from one or two specific time periods were adults around me. Generally, kids my age listening to American music were up to date with rock, pop, rap, hip hop, R&B, like whatever they were listening to, they were up to date. So that would be your Kesha, that would be your T.I., My Chemical Romance, Bullet for My Valentine. Like, people were up to date. Occasionally, I would run across maybe a couple of metalhead kids who exclusively listened to like old metal and nothing else. I did run across some kids that were like that, but they were a rare bunch. Generally, people around my age growing up were up to date with pop culture. And I, as a major visual kei listener, was rarely up to date with anything, whether that be America or Japan. I wasn't up to date with anything. As a matter of fact, finding a band where I could actually be along for the ride, like actually be along for the PV releases, the singles, was extremely rare. Some examples of bands where I was actually able to do this: Nine Goats Blackout, Sadi, Rintoto on Soy. Part of the reason I'm so attached to these bands is because I was able to keep up with them in a linear manner instead of just hopping from era to era, old concept to newer concept, back to an older concept. Another group too is Girugamesh. I think I did for a while follow them in a linear way. And for the bands where I was not able to do that, I don't know if it was like this for anybody else. You know, I would have pictures of band members on my binder. I would print pictures out and tape them to my binders and stuff. And my friends would be so eager to know who the people were. And I would have to explain to them, like, yeah, this is what the person looks like, but they don't look like that anymore. A lot of times they looked older. It's like, yo, this is Toshi from 19 something. And they'd be like, oh, he's old. Yes, he's aged. What of it? I use Toshi as an example, but I actually didn't start listening to X Japan that much until high school. But you guys know what I mean. I wouldn't be able to show them the exact person that they were looking for, which led to a lot of people just becoming disinterested as soon as I pulled up like a current version of what the band member looks like. So yeah, picking your favorite eras of a band and just sticking to that era and ignoring all of the band's current activities and pretending they don't exist is very common for American visual kei fans. And I think there are consequences to this that we don't even think about. One of the consequences is we see bands one way during one time period, behaving a certain way, saying certain things in interviews, and use it to apply to how they are now. And it's so fresh in our minds in a way they themselves might not even remember. Like, it has to fog our perceptions of these people quite a bit. Now, I'm sure Japanese fans reminisce about older visual kei groups like we do to an extent, but because visual kei is so communal in its home country, current activities, promotions, concerts are not something that can be dismissed so easily. Typically, Japanese fans are going to be up to date with band's current music and activities if they're into the band. Even if time has passed and the music has changed, there seems to be more devotion. Now, even though I'm talking about the time capsule effect in a manner where it's like we controlled what we listened to, there are some outside forces that probably made it easier for us to be stuck in time capsules. I know before the internet was as vast, it took a lot longer for stuff to get to us. And not every band was focused on gaining an international audience in the past. Because of the language barrier, current activities was harder to find. So plenty of other reasons exist to help with this time capsule effect. I have heard band members speak about this before. The most recent band member I heard speak about this was Hakue from Penicillin. I just find it funny how like we are known for being stuck in the past. Like, it's so common that they know that we just keep recycling old pictures and talking about old things. I wonder kinda if it annoys them, but I would hope that they understand that it is a symptom of like not having as much access and us being so far away from visual kei's home country. Now, based on observation, nothing matters in visual kei as much as community, which leads us to our next difference between American visual kei fans and Japanese visual kei fans, and that is lack of community. Based on observation, nothing matters in visual kei as much as community. It's more important than the music. It's more important than the fashion. I would say if I had to order it from like most important to least important, it would be community, fashion, and then the music. Without community, without gathering, we don't have that type of connection to the scene that people who are actually in the home country have. Being able to go out and support bands more directly, doing stuff like that is pretty much non-existent. There are also other more cultural elements, like there are actually dances, para, I forgot the phrase for it. There are dances, there are slang, just lots of other things that you're just going to miss out on, that no Google search, no reading about it in a Banya's blog. Like, the knowledge you gain online is just never going to replicate the actual climate of the community. It isn't our fault, of course. There are plenty of subcultures that make it out of Japan. But when people get into them, they have to work with scraps. And luckily, there are kind people out there willing to relay information, do translations, upload resources. There are people out there working hard to make sure they are a bridge between Japan and foreign fans that don't have access to whatever the subject is. Bless those people. We love you guys. I have noticed though, a major downside to us missing out on that authentic experience is the fact we end up having a very rose-colored view, a pure, idealistic way of looking at Visual Kei in comparison to how the scene actually is. Because we're not engaging with the scene firsthand, we don't think about the darker sides of it at all. Like, that part is completely forgotten. I'm reminded of this, especially when I read blogs from people that are involved with these bands. Tanuki, I know people say that Tanuki's not a reliable source, but I was told this a very long time ago. You're stupid if you believe everything, but you're dumb if you believe nothing when it comes to Tanuki. It's kind of hilarious because even people who aren't involved in Visual Kei in Japan have their own stereotypes for Visual Kei. I know a couple years ago I was talking to this guy that I would practice Japanese with on italki. I would call him my Japanese teacher, but he'd be like, don't call me that. I forgot what we were talking about, but one day he asked me my type, like my type of person, and I was just like, oh, well, do you mean my type in America or do you mean in Japan? Because there's a vast difference. I got a lot of types, okay? I ended up giving him some pictures, like sending him some images of Visual Kei guys, and he was like, oh, so hosts. And I was so confused. I was like, where did you get hosts from the pictures that I sent you? Like, I didn't say that to him, of course, but I was confused. I was perplexed. He started pulling up pictures of hosts, just sending me different images. And I was just like, they kind of look like Visual Kei band members. They probably would need darker makeup and maybe like a dark lip, maybe some piercings. But a lot of the hosts looked similar to the Visual Kei guys that I sent him. But I was still confused because I was like, where did I say hosts? At this time, I didn't understand there were some links between Visual Kei and host culture, or just hosts in general. So here's me super confused. I'm like, okay, so he just thinks I like beautiful men. Close enough. He's not wrong. Eventually, I just sent him a picture of like all the members of Kizu, and I was like, all of them. All of these members, because I was obsessed with Kizu at the time. He just gave a long sigh and he was like, kawaii. That's exactly what I expected. But yeah, I had no idea that there was a link between like hosts and Visual Kei band dudes. Like, I did not know this at all, but even him not being into Visual Kei, he had that in his mind. The way we see these Visual Kei men and women here is completely different than how even Japanese people who aren't into Visual Kei see them in their home country. Now we're going to include the people who are into Visual Kei. Like, the way we see them here is not the way that Visual Kei fans see them there. We're not familiar with the stereotypes. We're not familiar with the commonalities. Some of them have reputations, okay? Some of those members are notorious for certain behaviors, and little do we know. Last thing I want to say about community is that I think the reason why I was drawn to Visual Kei so much as a young girl was because of some of the communal aspects of it. I didn't realize it at the time, but seeing the band members mingle in a way that was almost like an exclusive club was kind of satisfying. It was very interesting and entertaining watching freshman bands like rise up the ranks and then gradually start to be seen with more influential Visual Kei people. It was just so fascinating, like the magazine shoots shot with different members from different bands. One of my favorite things was the company, like the big company shoots that they would do. And that was one of the reasons why it was so easy for me to learn about band members from bands that I didn't listen to. I was collecting the pictures, and the bands that I did listen to, if they were caught dead with another person, I had to look up who that person was, even if I didn't listen to the music. I was like, who's that person? I'm gonna memorize his name and we'll get to this band, we'll get to listening to this band when we get to them. Sometimes I never got to them. I kind of wonder, I don't know for sure because obviously I'm not Japanese, I'm not a part of the society, but I kind of wonder if having communities like that bring people together feel more sacred or feel more precious, because I've heard that like Japan is a very lonely society. Like, I do think we're getting lonely over here, don't get me wrong, but I've heard Japan has a problem with loneliness. I wonder if having a space like that makes it more valuable for Japanese fans in that type of society. Regardless if it plays a part or not, I think community is the core of visual kei from my observations. Okay guys, these are just my observations. Now we're on to the third difference, and I like to call it consumption of content. I think the way that we consume content here in America is vastly different than Japan. It has a lot to do with accessibility, but I'm gonna go into detail just a little bit because this section is short. I think the way we consume visual kei content is similar to how we consume anime. We're okay with making copies of things, buying fan-made stuff like posters and t-shirts. We're okay with getting unofficial versions of albums, unofficial. It is a symptom of not having access to the stuff that we would like to have access to, but I also think it's a symptom of us wanting to have our money go further. A lot of stuff is expensive when you are trying to buy something in Japan and get it shipped overseas. And I just think Americans don't care about authenticity as much when it comes to creatives. I just said like a very bold statement so casually, but I just don't think a lot of Americans care about authenticity, at least in the States. It's more about consumption. That's what it feels like. And I'm saying we because I get it, man. I get the struggle, I get the fight. But we see ethical consumption as something that is very difficult here. In any amount of difficulty, like just the tiniest sliver is too much. And reminder again that this is not a jab at other people. I own several things that aren't legitly obtained. I grew up relatively poor. While I did love visual kei, I sourced a lot of the things that I had online. If I was able to find it in Hot Topic and I was able to get permission from my parent and I happened to have money, which was rare, then I would buy what I could. But for the most part, none of the visual kei that I had was ethically sourced. I couldn't afford none of that stuff. I sourced it all through the only tool that I had, which was the internet. Now that I've become older, I do spend money on stuff, like more so lives, but I don't think I'll get to the point where all of the visual kei stuff that I participated in is legitly sourced until I reach a certain tax bracket. I have this plan to pretty much buy authentic versions, the albums, the actual albums of all of the old stuff that I did have as files on my computer. It is important to me to have that, to own that stuff. I feel like that's a lot of people. There's so many things that they want. They just don't have enough money to have it bought and shipped here. Overall, I would say American fans' lack of being financially involved in visual kei is definitely an access issue. It's due to high price tags, proximity, wanting to get more bang for your buck, and wanting to take the easier route. It's all of it mixed together. As for Japanese fans of frankly anything, I've seen that authenticity is more important, even if they do gotta get something shipped shipped to their country for like a lot of yen, they'll do it. If there's anybody who can weigh in on the conversation of just how much Japanese visual kei fans spend on visual kei related stuff, I would love to hear it, because from what I see on the outside, it does not seem like a cheap interest. It seems like an interest where you're going to be constantly spending money. And I don't mean like begrudgingly spending money. I mean happily spending money. From small things like buying checky to supporting whole members' lifestyles. I've heard fans be pouring a lot of money into visual kei over there. And I always have to put like mild disclaimers. I'm not saying no American fans authentically buy any Japanese things, okay? That is not true. But I do think we're more comfortable with not obtaining things the correct way and creating alternative ways to express when we're into something. I think we're good at that. There's a consumerist culture that is just integral to the American experience, the United States experience. We be consuming a lot of bootleg stuff, guys, and it's okay. It's okay. Anyways, we finally made it to the last difference. And the last difference that I see between American and Japanese visual kei fans is the fashion. I know that I said fashion is only the second most important thing in my opinion, but when I say fashion in this bit, I mean the fashion of the fans. not the fashion of Visual Kei band members. On the rare occasion I do bump into Visual Kei fans in person, they are usually dressed up in a way like they're expressing some type of alternative fashion. I've also been to a couple of Japanese rock concerts here in America, and most people are dressed up. There's an expectation that what you listen to is going to be emulated in your style. They don't have to be super dressed up, but best believe they're going to be in an aesthetic that correlates with the music that they're listening to. We feel validated by being able to wear something that communicates our interests without having to come out and say what those interests are. And music can typically be the source of inspiration for a lot of people's styles. But in contrast to what you see here, when you're watching a lot of these Visual Kei lives, if you look out into the crowd, for the most part, everybody looks regular. There might be like one or two people that have a little something going on, but they look regular. This is not a diss, okay? I look like a regular person half of the time. That's mostly because I can't afford the clothes that I want to. And when it comes to like Visual Kei clothing, I'm pretty tall. I'm not gonna be able to fit none of that stuff. That's mostly my reason, I guess you could say. But like all of the other points that I've mentioned, I think there's more to this than just these people don't want to look like the band members that they like. I think there's more to Japanese people dressing more normally, like Japanese rock fans in general dressing more normally in comparison to Western fans. And I think it just has to deal with Japanese society, especially after coming from my trip to Japan. When I was there, you know, you found some people that were super dressed up, mostly in like Harajuku and stuff like that, but everybody just blended in. It's not that they weren't well dressed, it's just that everybody blended in. The color palettes were similar, and I think that's just the result of living in a society where it benefits you to blend in. And I also think when it comes to Visual Kei specifically, there's this void that a lot of American fans have that Japanese fans don't really experience. They get firsthand, I was gonna say firsthand encounters, but you know what I mean. They get to see the band directly. So there's not this needing to put on something to prove that you're a fan or to feel more comfortable outwardly expressing you're a fan, because you're already there. You're at the concert, you're in front of the band, you're like front row. You don't need to do all that. It already doesn't really suit the society to stick out to begin with. But then also, you don't need to prove that you're into this. You interact with it every day. It's a part of your lifestyle. So yeah, I think that is also one of the reasons why it may be a little bit different for Japanese fans. Not to say Japanese fans never dress up, but I don't think they'll ever feel left out or self-conscious when they don't dress up. Before we move on to my prediction, which is fashion related, I want to put another thing that Hakuei said about fans dressing up at concerts. I'm gonna put it here. I feel like I talk about Hakuei's interviews a lot, but that's because I really like reading all of his interviews. Have I read anything recently? Oh, I think I read a recent interview by the Gazette by J-Rock News. I think Kai was talking about my favorite Gazette album, which is his favorite Gazette album, which is really cool. Okay, let me stop. And now on to my prediction for the future. My prediction for Visual Kei as it continues to resurface and gain popularity among the younger generation. My prediction, I hope it's not received negatively. My prediction is that Visual Kei will be reduced to a type of fashion among Western, I was gonna say fans, but I'm gonna say people. Although I feel like rock, especially like the heavier stuff, is in the process of having a revival. People are going back into the past and digging up the cores and the metals, all that good stuff. Even though there's more access to music more than ever at this point in time, a lot of the younger generation does not like the sound of rock. Slowly, they're warming up to it, but it's not their preferred genre like it was a lot of other people's growing up. And yeah, lots of modern Visual Kei bands are incorporating electronics into their music. I feel like electronics has always been kind of a Japanese thing, even in Visual Kei, but a lot of people don't like electronic music either. So you got electronic and rock mixed together. There are so many people, it's not their favorite sound. So I feel like while there are people interested in visual kei, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're enjoying the music. So because less people like the sound as much as the fashion, I feel like gradually the importance of the music is fading out. We got a lot of metalcore, electronic core, and neoclassical campers, okay? People who just stick within those genres in visual kei, and seldom do they ever travel out, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think younger fans are absorbing the fashion of visual kei at a more accelerated rate in comparison to anything else, and that's because the fashions from Asia have crossed over into the West on a commercial level. To look like a visual kei band member, to dress up in that style, would not look as weird nowadays compared to the past. Like, even if you were to dress alternative in the past, there's still some distinct differences between visual kei. When I say alternative, I mean like your emo, your punk, your goth. There are differences in the visual kei dressing style that are from Japanese influence. You can dress like that now and it be considered more acceptable, more familiar than it used to be. So I think that's the reason why the interest in the fashion is going to take off more so than the music for a lot of newer visual kei fans in the West. And it seems like the fascination with the fashion is something that brings American fans together in a way that the music might not be able to, because everybody's tastes are all over the place. I haven't seen people's tastes so scattered in a very long time. In the past, it was easy to find people who liked the same exact bands, who knew the same exact songs. But unless you're talking about like some of the neoclassical bands and maybe a couple of more recent groups that have popped up lately within the past few years, it's very difficult to find people who are on the same page. There are pros and cons to this forecast that I have predicted. Some of the cons are you get people who think they're better fans for being able to dress the part, and that's not rare. Elitism is very common in a lot of music-based subcultures. First thing that comes to mind is like punk, goth. Regardless of how much of the music you listen to from a music-based subculture, if you're able to nail the look, that will always be a flex to a lot of people. They'll just assume that you know what you're talking about. They'll just assume that you're very informed. Looks are a big deal in society just in general. So if you can nail the look, people are going to consider that more important than how much you know about the music. I think at the end of the day, being knowledgeable and knowing a little bit about the music is more important than how you dress and how you look. And if you like the fashion and you are able to indulge in dressing up that way, there should be no looking down on the people who are only able to listen to the music and not dress that way. Because you got a lot of young people. I was one of these people, so I definitely sympathize with younger kids that are in this position where you like the stuff but you can't afford to dress in the aesthetic that you want to dress in. There's several reasons why people might not be able to dress in the aesthetic despite liking it very much. As long as you're not looking down on those people, then I don't have a problem with you. But I do see elitism being a bigger issue, especially with the younger generations when it comes to the popularity of visual kei fashion growing. On a positive note, I do think the fashion can bring people into the music. Like, somebody could easily look at somebody in a certain style and be like, wow, I really like this. And then they see it's inspired by visual kei. Then they get into visual kei. Spreading of the fashion can be the gateway into the music, especially through TikTok and Pinterest. Even if the music in visual kei doesn't capture your attention immediately, I do think the longer that you stay within it, you're bound to find more and more that you like. Whether that means waiting for newer bands to emerge or going back into the past and digging up old bands. The longer you stay here, I feel like the odds of you finding something that you really like is much higher. And that's a good thing about the fashion. It can really pull people into visual kei as an interest. If you have reached the end of this video, please give the video a like. And if you have anything that you would like to contribute to the differences that you see when it comes to American fans in comparison to Japanese fans, feel free to comment. I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say, because like I said at the beginning of this video, I do think this will be one of the most important visual kei related videos that I make on my channel. I think being able to look at the differences between the fan experience here in America and the fan experience there in Japan is a big deal, because it's very, very different. I hope between school and all of the other stuff I have going on, I'll be able to upload more videos soon. I'm kind of just back getting just back. I'm kind of just now getting back into the swing of things, and these videos take me like hours to record, so I will see you guys all soon. I hope to see you guys all soon. Thank you for watching. Peace out.